everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Every Marvel Movie Ever. I'm your host, Gabe Thomas. With me, as always, is your co-host, Francisco Alcala.
It's been a while,
It's been quite a while. Hopefully you all enjoyed your Thanksgiving. I released that episode on Thanksgiving, totally as a treat to you guys for the holiday, not because I was late on putting it on our normal release date.
It's totally not what it was.
There's going to be a change next year. With next year's scheduling, I'm going to probably make some changes. We'll talk about that later, but because I haven't even figured out what I'm going to do yet. We only have 2 more movies left this year. This is one of them, and then we have one next Friday, and then that's it.
Then Gabe's going to go fuck off and never come back.
We can only hope. Who will you get to do the podcast with you?
Nobody. I'll do it on my own.
I was hoping you'd say Man-Thing. Because today we're talking about Man-Thing, which is probably the most underseen movie we've talked about since we talked about Nick Fury.
And also, probably the weirdest one we've seen.
Well,
if you compare it to all the other ones, okay, it's not the weirdest, it's the most different.
It is, and I think that's
if you
wonderful.
compare it to all of the other movies and all of the ones that we haven't watched yet, this is the most different. I think this is the one Marvel horror movie until the Doctor Strange one.
Yeah, which we don't even know how far that's going to go. Like, they say it's going to be pretty intense, but we don't know that for a fact yet. Also, before we talk about Man-Thing, I was on an episode of Podcasters Assemble. Last week, we did the Force Awakens episode. This week, I will probably be on the Last Jedi episode. And check that out, because that comes out the same day that this show comes out on Friday. So
What a sellout.
Listen to that. I know, but they're so nice. So if you're a Star Wars fan, which I would imagine most people listening to this probably are.
I mean, if you're not a huge nerd, then what are you doing here?
I know, right? What the fuck?
Especially watching this episode specifically.
Yeah, I hope that this is a lot of people's first episode. Like this, sees a huge spike in listens.
That would be great.
I love when the weird ones get the most listens because there's not that much content out about those movies. So if people want to learn about those movies, sometimes they come to us.
Do they actually get a lot of attention?
Sometimes some of our Hulk TV movies have 500 views on YouTube.
Oh,
and
that's weird.
And a bunch of listens too. So it's I like seeing that because I think on one episode we found out that I am 2 of the top results for Captain America Death Tuesday.
Yeah, we did figure that out.
That's
and I'm
nice.
sure we're the only result for this movie.
Yeah, quite possibly. Although, you know what's weird? Movie clips, like Fandango movie clips or whatever, it's 5 clips from the movie. Usually they only do real movies, but Man-Thing has movie clips. That's always been an interesting thing to me. It's that's so weird.
Yet we couldn't find this movie.
No, actually, it's on Amazon Video.
Yeah.
You can rent it for $3. It's just not available on DVD in a lot of places. For a while I was going to buy it on eBay, but you came over today.
The best place. The best place to watch movies.
Yeah, well,
or to buy movies.
We just watched this 10 minutes ago probably we got out of it or whatever, so
we came here right after watching it.
Much like the Nick Fury episode, we watched this together and now we're here fresh out of it. It's way later than we usually record.
We're both very tired for no reason.
A little bit, yeah, but
what a good Christmas movie this is.
Yeah, it was really nice because my family did Halloween. Sorry. God damn it, I'm not even gonna do it. My family did holiday decorations, so it was watching this under Christmas lights. It was really magical because people are just getting ripped in half and killed in terrible ways, and that's kind of what I want on Christmas.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, I love it.
It's the only thing you can ask for.
Garbage day.
God, that's gonna be so good to watch. We're spending the entire night after this just watching really terrible Christmas movies.
I have my Silent Night, Deadly Night sweater from Cavity Colors. Post a picture of the sweater on the Instagram. It's such a cool sweater. I love it. It's really great. But what else I really enjoyed tonight, other than this sick sweater, is Man-Thing. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would like it.
The reviews for this movie aren't great.
No.
It has a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was a 4.1.
I think 4.0 on IMDb.
Yeah, so they're not great, but I think this movie's actually pretty underrated. I think it was pretty good.
I think so too, and there's not a lot of Man-Thing in a Man-Thing movie, and usually I hate that, but what isn't Man-Thing is pretty interesting.
I think the Man-Thing stuff is less interesting than the rest of the movie, but it's still not bad. They spend the entire movie building up to it. You don't see Man-Thing literally at all until around 20 minutes until the movie's over. I think it works with how the movie... It's trying to be a horror movie, so I think keeping the Man Thing, like, not revealing him super early on works, because the worst thing in, like, a monster movie is when you reveal the monster too early, because then it just kind of ruins it.
Yeah, and usually some of those things would be red flags, like, oh, it's a Man Thing movie and you don't see Man Thing that much in the actual movie. But there's some pretty good character stuff in here and great atmosphere, and I care about the main plot that's going on, because the main plot is more about, like, fracking a swamp than it is about Man Thing, and that sounds so boring, but it's pretty well handled, I think.
I mean, from from how the movie is, I assume this takes place somewhere in, like, Alabama or something. There's a
Yeah.
lot of racism and a lot of, like, accents in this movie.
But it's all filmed in Australia, probably with a lot of Australian actors, because those accents definitely seep through sometimes.
Yeah.
No offense, but well, I just expected someone more experienced.
Australians trying to do American Southern accents is not a great thing.
I mean, I think most of the people in this movie did it passably.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible.
And we actually have a comment from Brian John who says that it stars Hellcat from Jessica Jones. I can't remember the name of that actress, but it is the same actress. She plays Patsy Walker on that show. So that's kind of fun. You know, just a little Marvel alumni thing. I enjoy that a lot.
Despite the fact that I'm sure she probably doesn't even remember being in this movie.
She could not tell you what this was called, and she definitely couldn't tell you that it's a Marvel movie.
I mean, if I didn't know this was a Marvel movie, I wouldn't have guessed it was.
No.
This is a really gruesome movie.
Except for the Marvel logo at the start.
Other than that,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's a pretty big indicator.
But there are a lot of very bloody deaths in this movie. It literally starts with one in the first 5 minutes.
And gory autopsies. Like,
yeah, like the lower half of someone's body being missing and like their body being filled with holes
losing
that like
arms and
with like worms coming out of them.
yeah, and things coming out the mouth, splitting people's tongues.
Yeah,
and
lots of trees growing out of people's mouths. But it all looks really good, surprisingly.
It's very grisly, which I really like. I would call it more grisly than gory, honestly, because there's gore, but there's a lot of like it's a grimy movie almost. It's kind of like Seven, or like it's not obviously David Fincher levels. It just kind of feels like that kind of movie, like a crime drama. But there's also a killer monster running around, so it's also a horror movie. And I really enjoy that because there's not really any superhero elements to this entire film.
No, not at all.
The horror elements, I think, are pretty strong. There's some good moments of building tension and suspense. There's, like I said, lots of good atmosphere. There's a really good use of color in this movie, like greens and oranges that kind of differentiate the two environments.
Yeah,
I
there's
really
a lot
like seeing
of
all that.
there's a lot of like yellow and orange in the more like the town, and then in all of, like the swamp areas, the lighting is a lot more like green and like just like darker colors, and I think it really works.
Yeah, it feels kind of like a horror comic. Maybe not EC comics, but like a Man-Thing comic almost, actually. Which I'm not super well associated with this character at all. I read the R.L. Stein run, not all the way through, but I read most of that recently. And
Which
thought it was
is
pretty good.
something I still find hilarious every time I hear it.
That he
R.L.
wrote
Stein
that.
wrote Man-Thing comics.
He did, and they're pretty fun. They're fun. It's about Man-Thing, and he goes to Hollywood, and he's like in a Man-Thing movie. And he's having like lots of self-doubts about being an actor because everyone thinks he's gross, and they fire him, and he's on like basically Man-Thing being blacklisted in Hollywood. And it's by the writer of all the Goosebumps books. Like, it's kind of amazing that we have that as a
Because
culture.
comics.
Yeah. This was released on April 30th of 2005 with a budget of $30 million and a box office
Oh,
of
this is sad. This is
$1
real sad.
million or $1.1 million. I think the low box office is because this went straight to DVD, so I don't really know how you calculate that kind of...
Yeah, so assuming that this never went to theaters, it
Mhm.
made $1 million in DVD sales, but not in the United States.
No, probably
Because
not.
there was no DVD here.
Exactly. Well, I mean, there is. It's just one of those hard to find things now. Like, they exist. You can get them on eBay for like $12 or whatever, but it's not being sold on Amazon or anything.
Because no one knows what this movie is.
Yeah, and the people who do, a lot of people who know what this is probably haven't seen it, and let alone like own it. So it's hard to find.
Yeah.
But I think there's plenty of people out there who are really into comics, and they're like, yeah, there's a Man-Thing movie. I don't know anything about it, but I know that there is one.
I think there's definitely people that should see this movie.
And you know what? More than anything, I think there's people who know that this movie exists but have no idea it's a Marvel movie. I think there's lots of people who are probably like, oh yeah, Man-Thing, I saw that like at a friend's house 10 years ago, halfway through it starting.
Yeah, this definitely feels like a movie that like you wouldn't even know the name of. You just recognize it
Exactly.
like just from like a scene.
A cop comes into town, he's investigating Twin Peaks. And he's like, oh, what's going on here? I don't know, but there's a monster, there's all these mysterious killings. I'm gonna have to figure this out and save this town kind of thing. Except everyone in the town is really racist. And maybe now we should talk about the less than favorable depiction of Native Americans in this film.
Yeah, so a really big part of this movie is Native Americans because the swamp that's getting fracked or whatever is sacred ground for some reason. I don't think they ever explained that.
I think it just happens
kind of
to
was.
be.
Because of course it is. There's a lot of Native Americans in this movie, and
I feel like there's one Native American in the whole movie.
Well-
There's just lots of talk about them and about their like forced spirituality, kind of. Because
yeah.
there's a big trope. You see this a lot with like I think like old black women is also like a target demographic where it's like for some reason there's this weird cultural thing and they're put in movies as like an unexplained mystical force. Like there's a scene in this where the Native American guy's talking and all the lights go out in a room for no reason, then they come back on. Like
He's drawing something in a bunch of sugar. Like
yeah,
3 or 4 scenes of the exact same character just like mumbling to himself in front of a bunch of candles with like a dream catcher above him. It's
not-
kind of offensive.
it's pretty offensive. It's not great. It's definitely the worst element of this movie. I think it's just
I think
it's a really like immature view of a whole group of people. You can't define
yeah,
that.
it's definitely not a great part of this movie. And again, there's a lot of racism in the movie.
There is, but the racism isn't by the writer and director. The racism is
yeah,
like,
no, it's like
people in universe saying terrible things and then characters being like, what the fuck, why would you say that? That's terrible. You can't
yeah,
say
like
that.
they're not saying it's a good thing. There's just like I mean, like I said earlier, it probably takes place in like Alabama or something, and everyone knows how the South is.
Yeah, it's accurate. It's just it's not accurate in the depiction of Native Americans. I think that's really like
That
ignorant.
definitely could have used some work.
There's so much misunderstanding of that, I think, that shines through in this movie. It's like, you guys don't get it. You don't understand because little boys on the playground in the 50s played cowboys and Indians, and that's kind of what the depiction is.
And
It's
it
not
wasn't
really-
even necessary because
No.
Man-Thing isn't like a Native American thing.
No, but if you want to have that, if you want to have some sort of environmental message and the spiritual message, you need to pay it off in a way where the people who are like guided by spirituality,
You got to
don't
do it
look
respectfully.
yeah, they don't make them look foolish for believing what they believe and all that. Like they're people. They're not,
Yeah.
they're not weird warlocks who live in the woods and talk about mythical beings or whatever. Like it's not.
Yeah,
that.
that's
It's
not-
weird. That's not.
No one person is like that unless they're completely insane.
Yeah, that's
like,
not just how a group of
That's not how
humans
people
are.
are. People don't act like that.
yeah. No. Again, the only way to describe it really is ignorant, and it sucks that that has to be in this movie because a lot of this movie I really enjoy, but then that is not good, obviously. Another thing that I don't like, because I do want to get some of the negatives out of the way, is there is an overabundance of really bad quick cutting, especially like point of view vision of Man-Thing. That's awful.
Yeah,
None of it works ever.
It's really weird, and there's like a brown filter over it
It's
that
something
just
we
it
talk
looks
about
really
a lot.
gross.
We've dealt with that a lot recently. Lots of these movies, they have weird, fast-paced editing that make them look like they're over-edited. We've seen that a lot lately. It's an overabundance of cuts and weird filters, and they're not used with any purpose. The greens and the oranges that we're talking about are good stylistic choices, but then it
This was
feels
a bad
like
one.
the
A
head-
really bad one.
if you want to get technical, I don't think that the director of photography communicated with the head of editing because there's a huge difference in between how most of the movie looks and how those weird segments look that were clearly all B-roll footage.
Yeah, I feel like if it only happened like maybe once or twice, it would be really easy to overlook it. But any time that there's a scene kind of involving Man-Thing, it happens.
Or just trying to show the passage of time. It'll do the moon rising thing, which
Yeah,
always looks awful. Like superimposed moon over a sky
Yeah,
where it isn't.
It's just not great.
Those are the two biggest problems I have.
I think those are really like the only problems I have with it.
I don't think I can say that because I think towards the end there are some times where I'm like, I kind of wish Man-Thing would show up or something supernatural would happen and we would see it, because there is a lot of build-up. Like, I think most of it really works because you're right, you don't want to show it too early, but I think towards the end when there's 25 minutes left of the movie, I kind of want the main thing to have happened.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely did wait a little too long to show him, because they had the chance to. Like, I feel like a good time to have shown it was, I don't even remember the name, the Dimmadome brothers.
The Dimmadome brothers, yeah. Dimmadow.
Yeah. When they got completely fucked up, I feel like that would have been a pretty decent time to at least show him a little bit.
Yeah, not just glimpses past the camera.
Not literally
and
just showing his hand.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you get for most of the movie. You get like an arm.
I think Roger Ebert has a quote that's, if nothing happens by the end of the second reel, then nothing's going to happen. I mean, second reel now just means second act. I think I was starting to feel that kind of thing towards the end. It was like, nothing's happened, and maybe nothing will happen.
Yeah,
I'm still enjoying the creative gore and the characters in the story. It's not a total sham, it's just there were definitely times where I was hoping that he would show up. But when he showed up, I was impressed. I thought he looked pretty good.
It was a mixture of like practical effects, but also CG. I think some of the CG looked a little questionable sometimes.
The eyes, especially.
Most of the time, I think it looked pretty okay. But I mean, what can you expect in 2005?
Well, 2005 with a pretty cheap budget. Because you could do some pretty impressive things around that time.
But like with what they had, I think they did their best.
Yeah.
But I think all the practical effects, of course, all looked really good because most practical effects look good.
Well, we talk about how this movie actually originally was going to be in theaters, and they were like, no. And then it was going to be released on the Sci-Fi Channel, and
they said no.
They were like,
which is a complete shock. I didn't think they refused any movies when they have like Ghost Shark on that channel.
And Ghost Shark 2 Urban Jaws. But,
and 6 Sharknado movies.
Yeah, so far.
So far.
Watch out.
And the Banana Splits movie, which at the end of that movie led up to like it's planning a sequel.
Oh,
definitely.
Great. That's my favorite kind of movie.
I feel like it's gonna be the next Sharknado. So
wonderful, great. I can't wait.
With all those examples, you really turned down Man-Thing.
But I mean, maybe 2005 Sci-Fi Channel wasn't the same. But it was, because they had Sharktopus and Piranhaconda and like all these crazy fucking movies that my mom used to like turn on, and I would just be like, this is great. Like I was like 5 years old and I was like, I love this.
It's a bad day in paradise.
It didn't have a great run. There's a story about how there was like a test screening and the audience walked out before the movie was over. I don't really understand.
I don't see it.
Where those things are coming from, but
it's understandable to walk out of a movie if it's like really, really bad, but there's nothing in this movie that's like that bad. Even in bad movies, the audience usually sits through it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think especially in a test screening, if the movie's bad, then you sit through it and give feedback.
That's the point.
Yeah, not walk out of the movie when it's not even that. There's so much worse.
Your one job is to criticize the movie, and if you just leave and don't give your thoughts on the movie,
that defeats the purpose, and that's a waste of your time and the filmmaker's time.
Exactly.
So thank you for coming to the half of this movie.
Everybody who's running that test screening, they don't have any feedback. It's like, why did we waste all this time setting this up and doing this? But whatever, people suck. Actually, side note, have you ever walked out of a movie, like in a theater?
I have not.
Me either.
Even if it's a bad movie, I usually sit through it.
I've probably left something, but I never walked out of something because it was bad. I fell asleep for some of First Man. That's the Ryan Gosling, Neil Armstrong movie, because nothing was
What
happening.
a movie.
I know. You know,
riveting stuff.
the scene where they go to the moon in that movie, though, it's fucking amazing. But the rest of that movie can suck a dick.
I feel like most space movies are kind of boring sometimes.
What does that mean? What do you mean most space? Like sci-fi movies or like movies about humans going to space?
Yeah.
Like biographical.
I think just like humans going to space, because that's not an interesting. It's an interesting thing to think about, but watching a movie about it isn't, because there's nothing exciting about floating in space for a couple months.
It's interesting if you go to space and then there's an alien that attacks you on your ship.
Yeah, but like,
And it's interesting to go to space if, I guess in Gravity's case, if you're in space working on something, then you get disconnected and you're just floating around and you're trying
that's
to
how like
survive.
that's like the only way to make a space movie interesting, and that's why they do it all the time.
Or,
like recently,
Like The Martian, I guess, also, because like you're trapped on Mars.
I think that's different. Being stuck on a different planet is kind of different than just floating in space.
I know, I just feel like we're gonna get shit if we're like, fuck space.
Yeah,
movies.
obviously space movies can be interesting. I'm not
But
saying
I
they
know,
can't.
No, I know what you mean.
It's
like
like-
Space Cowboys and like
Yeah, it's just
First
like
Man and
space on
Ad
its
Astra,
own.
That was a recent one, yeah.
Yeah, space on its own isn't an interesting thing unless you're actually going to space.
No, not to make a movie about. It's interesting to learn about space and learn about like wormholes
Yeah.
and shit like that. But
You have to have like danger in space.
exactly. If you're just in space and it's fine.
It's the same thing as like a road trip movie where nothing happens. That's not
Yeah.
interesting. You're just going somewhere. Nobody wants to watch that.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Fuck you, space movies.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a no. What was the thing you sent me? I don't remember.
Put it on a Sherpa.
Yeah, there we go. Put it on Sherpa.
Franny and I are gonna start wearing matching Sherpas on the podcast.
Fuck yeah.
Yay! Sherpa bros.
Disgusting.
Put that on a Put that on a Sherpa.
Put that on a
bros.
Sherpa. Fuck. Put that on a t-shirt on a Sherpa.
Oh Jesus! Oh no! I mean I don't know if fans of the show know this, but I think some people probably do that. Like horror is more my area than like I know my comic books pretty well, but horror is more. I'm wearing a Silent Night, Deadly Night
Yeah,
sweater.
it's definitely Gabe's strong suit. I think
Yeah.
comics and like all that is probably a close second.
It's very close. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't.
Yeah, but
But-
horror movies are definitely your thing.
Exactly. And so it's really nice to see something that blends both of these because I haven't
and does it well.
exactly. Blade, those are like, you know, like Super Nintendo games when the horror games were like action games with horror elements. That's kind of how those Blade movies
It's the
feel to me.
Castlevania of the Marvel movies.
Exactly. It's another thing with a horror skin on it where a vampire jumps out and you go, ah.
Yeah. Great scream.
Yeah, that's
It's
how I
like-
scream in real life.
Like it's not scary, it's just like it's kind of spooky
There's
sometimes.
kind of spooky elements to it. That's how
Speaking of kind of spooky,
What?
the thing that we watched before.
Oh my god. Okay, I want to give a big shout out.
Yeah, we got to completely sidetrack this for the amazing short film that we just stumbled across while looking up the movie.
Would you like to tell them the name? film?
Fuck, I can't remember it. It's the thing, the thing at 2:37.
Yes, sir. How
Yeah,
could you forget the thing?
I
that
don't
said?
know, but it's so good.
Yeah, so this was directed by this was written and directed by Ray Sullivan. And we looked up Man Thing on the PlayStation, looking for the movie on Amazon.
on the Amazonian thing. Yeah.
And what popped up on Prime was an 8-minute short called The Thing at 2:37.
And the cover is a skeleton with orange eyes.
Yeah, and so we were like, actually, my entire family at this point was gathered around the TV, and we were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, Gabe's entire family was in the middle of eating dinner when we just stumbled across this. So,
We all watched it.
yeah, everyone watched it. It was fucking amazing.
It was one of the best things I've ever seen. And you know what? I don't think we should ruin the reveal here. I think I'll leave a link to
No,
it below,
we-
and people should watch it.
Yes, it's only 8 minutes. It goes by really quick, and it's on YouTube. It doesn't have that many. I mean, it kind of does. It has something around 3,000, I think, almost 4,000 views. It's from last year or
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Last year, yeah.
It's pretty recent. It's definitely interesting, and I really
interesting.
enjoyed it.
I was genuinely quite frightened by what the thing at 237 was. I didn't see it coming, and I thought it was pretty scary. Like, I watched a lot of horror movies.
Would you say it's spooky?
I would say.
Would you say it's scary?
I would say it's spooky. I'd say it's scary. I'd say it's frightening. Like, I just didn't see that coming, and like I'm gonna be thinking about that.
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
in my core.
It was a really weird experience, but I think it was definitely a good way to start off the night.
It's not. I'm not gonna forget that anytime soon. Like, it's
it's
kind of like an important film. Like, I feel like people need to see.
it's definitely something to remember. It's on YouTube. We're definitely gonna have the link. You need to watch it because it's amazing.
It's pretty great. It's
I
almost better than Man Thing itself.
I love everything about it. It's just so good.
It's a quick watch. Watch it and come back. Back to Man Thing.
Back
I know
to-
we got sidetracked because it's such
Back
a
to
big
an
deal, I think.
inferior movie.
Yeah, clearly. I guess we should say that this was directed by Brett Leonard. He did Virtuosity, Highlander 5, and Lawnmower Man. So that's a bunch of
What's
films.
that last one?
Lawnmower Man. It's a Stephen King thing.
Okay.
It's not a man with a lawnmower. It's like a...
I was kind of hoping it
and
was.
He goes into a computer or something. It's a really bad 90s CG, but...
All right, that's how
It
lawnmowers
exists.
work.
It exists. And the writer is Hans Rodionov. Mr. Rodionov, I really enjoyed your character work and story within this film, but I have to say that your track record, sir, is not great. He wrote The Skulls 2. The Skulls 1 is like a movie from the 90s with Paul Walker in it. He wrote both Lost Boys sequels, The Tribe and The Thirst, and Deep Blue Sea 2. My hat is like a shark's fin.
My hat is like a shark, yeah. Deepest bluest, my hat is like a shark's fin.
Golly gee.
You're doing good. And also got to give a shout out to the guy who's actually in the Man Thing costume, Conan Stevens. He's like a 7-foot tall guy from Australia.
Good on him. He did a
some-
good job.
I know, he did some stuff in the Hobbit movies and Game of Thrones. I always just like people in costumes. I always think that that's cool.
Because they have a cool job.
It always is, yeah. And they're always,
They have like the best job.
And the reason I like horror so much is because people in the horror community are always so nice, and I get to meet a lot of them.
All the serial killers are always the nicest people.
Yeah, I know. What the? Wait a minute. Never put that together.
I mean, if you're a dickhead, then you blow your cover.
That's fucking wonderful. I'm glad you said that. Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, put it on a Sherpa.
Genuinely
Put it on a
Put
Sherpa,
it
on a
on a
t-shirt, on a
Sherpa.
Sherpa.
And last piece of trivia I have is just that after this, the rights reverted back to Marvel Studios immediately. So
And then they did nothing with it.
I think there's a reference on Agents of Shield maybe to him. I don't watch that show. I don't know.
What was in there? Who or what is a man thing? I swear I need a cocktail.
That would make a lot more sense when I was looking up Man Thing. I think the second result was Man Thing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I was very confused.
Apparently, there's like a photo of Stan Lee somewhere in this movie in the police station. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
but-
I mean, we also weren't really paying attention to that scene. So,
No, because early on we were still kind of expecting it to be bad, but
yeah, and then we were genuinely surprised when it wasn't terrible.
I don't really know how much we can say about the movie specifically other than it's underseen and we liked it and it's got cool horror elements, because I feel like sometimes talking about a horror movie or an underseen movie, when people go out and see it, if we explain the whole thing, it's not as interesting, because a big part of why I really liked this is because I didn't expect much from it and because I had no idea what was going to happen.
If anything, I think us having low expectations for this movie made it better, because it was good, but also it like subverted our expectations.
Yeah, it did. It's a pretty straightforward plot, like we were talking about. It's not the most layered thing in the world, but
It doesn't need to be though.
It doesn't need to be.
It's Man Thing.
I really enjoyed the performance by the guy who's like, he's basically an oil tycoon. Like, he's this really
Oh
cartoony.
my fucking! He
campy
was
guy.
amazing by the end of the movie.
So many great lines from him and from everybody in this movie. This is a pretty damn
Who's gonna kill me? You.
well written movie, I think.
You should have kept your Yankee nose out of this, boy.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, there was a moment towards the end that I was kind of like, I don't really like that. Which is, I don't know what you're thinking. I didn't even make note of this while we were watching it. I just I thought it and was like, I'll remember that later. When Trish Walker from Jessica Jones, basically the oil tycoon, he shoots one guy who everyone thinks is the guy killing people in the woods, but then it turns out it's Man-Thing, and then he shoots the main character in the armor or whatever. And then, like, even though there's 2 guns on the ground now, the second that Trish Walker, she could easily run and get any of those guns and shoot him, he just treats her like she's not a threat because she's a woman. So he's like, whatever.
It's 2005 in a horror movie.
All I'm saying is that she works 9 to 5.
Working 9 to 5.
I enjoyed the performance by the main guy, and I kind of liked his rookie partner. I thought he was kind of fun because he's just kind of a bumbling cop. It's like,
Yeah,
I always like
it's
that
charming.
dynamic. Exactly, it's tried and true.
And then he gets blowed up, and it was
Then
real
he gets
sad.
blowed up. Yeah. I guess, do we want to do a kill count for this movie? Not literal kill count, but just talk about some of the cool deaths that happened. It starts with a death.
If I can remember them, then yeah.
It starts almost like Jaws in a way. Like, Jaws opens where they're at the campfire or whatever, and then that girl runs
The
to
beginning of this
beach.
movie was so weird, not even because of the movie, but just because of your dad. Shout out to Gabe's dad.
Shout out to my dad for being a fucking G.
Man-Thing has tits.
I love my dad. I love you, Dad.
Yeah, your dad's great.
My dad's
I love
great.
him.
I know. And I watched so many movies with him. I watched.
We watched like half of this movie with him.
It's true. I've watched the dirtiest fucking shit with him at this point. Like, it's like, great. Man-Thing is tits. I love it. But yeah, thanks, Dad, for that moment.
Yeah, I think that definitely made the movie pretty good. just
run
to start.
over to the
Yeah,
TV. Man-Thing has tits. Put that on a Sherpa.
yeah. Put that on a t-shirt. Man-Thing, breaking news, Man-Thing has tits.
It's just an image of Man-Thing with tits. Fan art. Fan art.
No, I don't want fan art. No.
Man-Thing with
Well, okay.
tits.
Fan art is fine, but not of that.
Put it on DeviantArt. Do it.
That's
Do it.
that's gonna be our new cover.
You know it exists.
No, it doesn't.
Oh yeah?
It doesn't.
You want me to look it up for Annie?
No.
Okay. We're gonna be looking it up after.
Anyway,
Okay.
kill count.
That girl.
Shout out to Dead Me.
Yeah, they're a little underknown channel.
Oh yeah.
Dead Meat.
Definitely.
James and Chelsea, they do great work over there. And their cat Lucy, of course. They're wonderful. Check them out. We'll definitely leave a link to them in the
They're definitely
description.
smaller than us.
Yeah, but
They definitely need us to
they're
shout
really,
them out.
they're finding their footing, I think. I think they're really going to figure it out. They're actually bringing a lot of people who aren't usually into horror movies, and I've really admired how they've done that. I've met them in person. They're really nice, but,
I'm
small little
jealous,
business. Oh
'cause
my
they're
God,
fucking
they were
amazing.
so nice to me.
And you met them while they were trying to eat.
I did. They were eating in line. I'm sure I've told the story on the podcast, but I'll tell it again because I love it. I was at a convention. They're like getting their food in the lunch line, and I ran over to them. I was like, James, Chelsea, can I get a photo with you guys? And they're like, yeah, once we order our food, you can. And I was like, oh yeah, I should have thought of that. Okay. And then I went back and was waiting for them. And then they came back, and I just talked to them for a couple minutes, and they were super nice. And then we took pictures, and then we had a triple handshake, and it was great.
They're great.
I love them so much.
They're so good.
I'm probably going to see them again in April when I go to
Fuck
another
you.
convention. Yeah. Oh my God, horror conventions are so good. Obviously, you guys kind of expect us at this point to not be super on topic, but I feel like it's almost good that we're not totally talking about this movie too much because I want people to see it and I don't want them to know everything.
This
that
is
happens.
definitely a movie that you just need to watch, especially
Yeah.
since nobody knows about it. You just need to watch it for yourself.
But I would still say don't go in expecting the best thing ever. Just go in expecting a fun horror movie and don't go in for Man-Thing. Go in to see something cool.
I think just don't expect anything.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
If you think it's going to be the best movie ever made, you're going to be so disappointed.
the reviews are very wrong online, but I feel like also we probably enjoy this movie a lot more than most people will.
Yeah, but
So don't take our word for it that it's so great just because we think it is. You should definitely form your own opinion on this movie.
Of
Which,
course.
I mean, you should on all the movies we talk about anyway, but I feel like it could be a hit or miss with people.
no, not everyone's going to love this. Really isn't for everyone. But I think that this could definitely find an audience. I could totally see this in 5 or 10 years' time becoming a cult movie. Because most cult movies are things that are underappreciated when they come out, and then eventually they find a following. Because people who want it will find it.
This is
And
definitely
I think that could totally like this movie has that kind of potential.
This is definitely the hidden gem of like the 2000s Marvel movies.
Yeah, and maybe all of them, because this is, I would say, the least known Marvel movie, except for a lot of the TV movies. I think even less people know about it. It's probably on the same level as some of those. Yeah, and it's not that hard to find. It's just hard to find a physical copy, but you can rent this for $3. So,
And for $3, it's pretty good.
pretty good. And check out that
Definitely worth it.
check out that R.L. Stein run, because I think that's a lot of fun. I really want to read the Infernal Man thing. I was hoping to read a bunch, but I never have time. always a hustle. Never can never stop.
Are we gonna go over the kills like we've been trying to do for like the past 10 minutes?
Oh yeah, well, I was not like saying how many kills there are. I was just saying, what are the cool ones? Like, guy gets his legs ripped off, guy gets his tongue split in half.
Yeah, I think the one where he just gets fucking he shotgun blasts the door and then looks through it and then gets blown back.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so cool. I also love the guy who gets thrown through all the walls. That's really great.
Yeah. I feel like all the cool or all the deaths in this movie are cool.
They are. It's really cool, and really cool gore effects.
the very last one was kind of weird. When he gets like picked up and like stabbed, and then his body gets filled with like oil, and then he starts spitting up oil.
Well, anything can be bought and sold for the right amount of oil. Yeah, no, that's. Yeah, but whatever. I thought it looked cool.
Yeah,
with
it
oil
was
seeping out the mouth.
It was cool. It was just kind of like weird.
It almost reminded me of Lady Deathstroke's death in X2, where like the
Yeah, when she was getting
coming out of her eyes. Yeah,
which
like
that's
that,
still so
just
fucking
a little
cool.
more extreme. That's
Every time I
that's a
think about
great
that,
fight.
it's so
that
fucking
fight
cool.
Is the best part of that whole movie. That's so good. Where you're just getting stabbed through the thing. Love that.
She gets filled with metal.
Filled with metal. Holy shit! That bitch was rock solid.
God damn it.
It's true, she was. And she made me happy when she died.
Cool.
She was a bad guy. She was like a villain in that movie. We should address Swamp Thing, probably, because Man-Thing owes everything to Swamp Thing.
Yeah, they're the exact same character. Swamp Thing is the DC character that had one episode of a show and then it got canceled.
Well, he had 2 movies in the 80s, and the first one was made by Wes Craven, one of the greatest horror directors of all time.
How was it actually a decent movie or was it shit?
It's pretty schlocky, but it's kind of like those comics.
Is it worse than this? Are they the same?
They're super different. This is a lot darker.
Well, I mean, like, are they like the same like quality?
In different ways. They're made.
They're
for
just different horror
They're made for
movies.
different groups. Well, that one's barely a horror movie. It's made by Wes Craven, but it's pretty campy. This one is a lot more serious. And Man-Thing is more of a ruthless killer. Swamp Thing is like a superhero. Like, he's a lot more just cut and dry superhero. But Swamp Thing's better, not just in the movies. Also in the movies, he's played by Ray Wise, Leland Palmer from Twin Peaks. And he shared my story recently, so that was awesome. The thing, though, that Swamp Thing mostly has over Man-Thing is most of the original Swamp Thing comics were fucking written by Alan Moore. So
Yeah, that's an automatic win.
one of the best,
Or well-
one of the best comic writers to ever live.
But consider
Pretty big win.
R.L. Stein.
Oh, you mean that run that he did 2 years ago, as opposed
Yes.
to prime Alan Moore in '82 or whatever it was?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Fuck you, Watchmen. Fuck you.
Fuck you, Alan Moore.
Alan Moore. Go live in your cave with your snakes or whatever. Fucking weirdo. He's a hermit now. Everybody scared him because they kept making movies of his shit. And he was
Everyone's-
like, I fucking hate this. I'm going into fucking.
I'm so tired of this world.
He literally, I'm fed up with this world. He literally went into hibernation.
Oh, Tommy Wiseau.
Oh, Tommy Wiseau. I've met you 3 times.
And you've almost committed murder 3 times.
Gotten to flex so many times this episode about my celebrity connections. People who, if I saw again, would never remember me because
No.
they meet 1,000 people a day. It's their job. Anyway, anything else to say about this?
It
We've been having briefer and briefer episodes. Eventually, it's gonna be a minute. We liked
Yeah.
it. Bye.
was good. 7 out of 10. Was okay.
1 out of 10. Why were you Mario? Oh, it was okay.
It was okay.
It was fine.
Pizza pasta.
That's fucking racist. You just.
So is this movie.
Oh yeah. You got anything else?
Comes full circle.
Always does. Just watch it. Just
Yeah, it's
give it some love. It deserves it.
it's a good movie, but I feel like it's also kind of hard to talk about. And
Yeah, because it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just go watch it. It's only $3. It's definitely worth it.
Friend of the show, Paul, he just said that I posted an image on when I was asking people to tell us what we thought, and he said that the image is awesome, but he bets the movie is shit. So,
Well,
we liked it.
I'm sure you're glad
Fuck
to
you,
know.
Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck you, Paul.
Fuck you, Paul, our most loyal and devoted fan.
No, we love you, Paul.
We love you, Paul. Thank you. You're the best. Oh man, he's turned a lot of people onto our show. It's
Yeah. You're amazing, Paul.
Yeah, you're great. This movie is also great.
Yeah,
It's not as good as
so
Paul, but it's
Paul,
pretty good.
you should watch the movie because
Yeah, watch
it's
the
not
movie,
shit.
Paul.
It's actually really good. It's just as good as the picture that Gabe posted.
He's gonna hear this and then watch and be like, "Oh shit."
Probably. He's be like, you lied to me.
Sorry, Paul. He's in the UK. They have a different quality of standard there.
That's fair. No, it's not.
This movie is posh.
This movie is rubbish.
um,
That's probably offensive.
no, fuck it, whatever. We have connections, Franny. We'll be okay. We're like Prince Andrew with our connections.
Okay.
He never hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. They weren't friends. Nothing happened.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
People don't like when things get political. Jeffrey Epstein.
That's why we talk
definitely
about
didn't kill
politics.
himself. That was Bill Clinton. Is that a wrap?
I think so. I think
before we
yeah.
get put on a blacklist by the government.
Yeah, I think I hear the FBI knocking on the door.
Yeah, well, we should probably answer that. But first, let me say that you can email us at marvelmoviepod@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at marvelmoviepod. You can find me on Instagram at flipdeg. You can find me on Twitter at flipdeg, but the E and egg is a 3. Franny lives in a weird swamp, and he's a weird hermit man, just like Alan Moore, and he has no social media because he hates interaction, and he doesn't want you to make movies of his fucking comic books.
And also, living in a swamp means I have no connection to the internet. It's hard to get an internet connection.
And he bathed in his own feces.
All the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
why.
not a good thing to have on a podcast.
Well, that's gonna end every episode now. From
Yep.
now on. So
You're gonna cut it into every episode.
that'll be the theme song. The first thing. I bathe in my feces every day.
I've made many mistakes in my life.
Is that the worst one? You burnt down
No.
that fucking orphanage.
Also, I live in a swamp,
Yeah,
so
well, no Shrek references in this whole movie. We were really surprised.
yeah. But I mean, in the movie, not from us.
From us,
That's a different
Constant.
story.
Constant. Oh my god.
Also, I'm kind of shocked we didn't mention Shrek once in this entire episode until now.
Okay, you have to do your best Shrek impression on 3. You ready? We're
I'm
both
not
gonna do
doing
it at
that.
the same time. 3, 2, 1. Donkey! You need to do it with me.
The FBI is coming in hot.
Shit. Okay. Okay. Well, that's the end of the show. Watch this movie. It's underrated.
It's really good. You need to watch it. It's only $3. Also, watch The Thing at 2:37.
Yeah, they're both great. They're of equal quality.
And that's to say they're both really great.
Okay.
Like 7 or 8 out of 10.
Okay. We gotta go.
Yeah, FBI.
Bye.
We love you.
Love you forever.